What is going on, Solo fam? My name is John Solo, and welcome to another episode of Messed Up Origins, the show that can either make or break your childhood. We do this by shedding some light on the truly disturbing stories that inspired your favorite childhood films. Today we're diving into The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling, which has been one of the most requested topics over the past few months. The reason I waited so long to cover this particular origin story is because honestly, at one point, I felt I didn't have the skill set necessary to summarize Kipling's work without taking the magic right out of it. The Jungle Book may have been written over 120 years ago, but I can personally confirm that as of last week, 2018, it still holds up. I found myself captivated by Kipling's description of the jungle and his imagining of their society's laws, in addition to how he wrote the Mowgli character and his interpretation of the world around him. It's an intimidating endeavor, but with 30 episodes in the bag and an average rating of 98% thumbs up, I finally gained enough confidence in my storytelling abilities to share with you the tale of Mowgli, the man cub who was raised by both wolves and humans alike. Per usual, let's do a quick recap of Disney's Jungle Book for those who haven't seen it in a while and need a refresher. As we all know, Disney has both an animated and live-action version of the Jungle Book. Okay, a few live-action versions. Today we're focusing on the cartoon. We might look at the others in the future though. Like always, if you enjoy this series and want to show your support, make sure to smash that like button with all your heart so we can reach our goal of 5,000 likes, keep the new episodes coming, and subscribe while ringing that bell so you never miss another one. Ladies and gents, without further ado, The Jungle Book. The film opens with Bagheera the panther finding a baby in a basket that was abandoned in the jungle. He drops the man cub off with a family of wolves who agree to raise him because how can you resist something that cute? We then skip forward 10 years when Mowgli's grown into a young boy and completely assimilated to life in the jungle. The Wolfpack Council has to meet one night to discuss the return of Shere Khan. The tiger hates humans and the wolves know he'll hunt down Mowgli and anyone who tries to protect him. For his own safety, Bagheera agrees to escort the man cub to the man village, but Mowgli doesn't exactly want to cooperate. So on this journey, he and Bagheera find themselves getting into all kinds of hilarious jungle hijinks. Mowgli almost gets eaten by Kaa the python, who's known for hypnotizing his victims. He also infiltrates a herd of elephants, and after an argument with Bagheera, the man cub is left to his own devices. Have no fear though, because Baloo comes along to educate Mowgli on the bare necessities, his rules for how to get along in the jungle. While the two are just chin-chilling on the lazy river, some monkeys kidnap Mowgli right off Baloo's stomach and take him to the ancient ruins to meet their leader, King Louie. Louie offers to help Mowgli stay in the jungle if he tells him the secret of fire, which he should know because he's human. Now, since Mowgli wasn't raised by humans, he has no idea how to make fire, but Louie doesn't believe him, so Bagheera and Baloo are forced to rescue the man cub from the monkeys, leaving their ruins even more ruined than before. Ultimately, Bagheera convinces Baloo the jungle is too dangerous for little Mowgli, but when the bear tries telling him this, the man cub gets angry once again and storms off, only to make some new friends and a group of vultures who accept Mowgli as a fellow outcast. Out of nowhere, Shere Khan appears, scares the vultures away, and he's just about to gobble Mowgli up when Baloo comes to his rescue. He gets seriously injured in his fight with the tiger, but he and the vultures provide a valuable distraction that allows Mowgli to grab the flaming branch of a nearby tree that was struck by lightning and tie it to Shere Khan's tail. The self-proclaimed Lord of the Jungle is terrified of fire and runs away in a panic, leaving our heroes safe once again. Mowgli now recognizes the dangers of him living in the jungle, but he's still hesitant when Bagheera and Baloo take him to the edge of the man village. That is, until he spots a pretty young thing fetching some water from the river. After she accidentally drops her water pot, Mowgli, who's basically entranced at this point, picks it up and follows her into the man village to be with his own kind, while Baloo and Bagheera start their journey home. So that was how Disney decided to adapt Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book, or should I say, the first 3 chapters of The Jungle Book. You might not have known this, but the Jungle Book novel contains more stories than just Mowgli's. Other chapters include The White Seal, Tumai of the Elephants, Her Majesty's Servants, and Rikki Tikki Tavi, which is probably the second most famous story in the book. Every chapter takes place in a different part of India, and interestingly is followed by either a poem or song. For example, the first song included is the Seeonee Wolfpack's hunting song, but we're not going to go over these because they don't really serve a purpose. Mowgli's story spans 3 chapters, and we're covering all of them today, so just sit back, relax, maybe grab a little snack if you're feeling kinda hungry, but most importantly, enjoy. Chapter 1. Mowglis Brothers. The first chapter introduces us to Mowgli, some of the animals in the jungle, and how their society functions. It begins with Father Wolf waking up from a nap on a warm evening, and he's about to go hunt when a mischievous jackal named Tabaqui slinks up to his den. Just saying, there is no way I'm pronouncing that name right, but he's not really that important of a character, so we're just gonna power through it. Father Wolf is like, "Oh god, what do you want?" And the jackal informs him that Shere Khan, the most hated animal in the jungle, is shifting his hunting grounds into their territory. This is bad news because Shere Khan is infamous in the nearby villages for attacking their residents at night. He's referred to as the ghost tiger, and if the humans catch word that he's close, they might just set fire to the jungle to scare him away. In the book, Shere Khan is sometimes referred to as Lungri, which means the lame one, because he was born with a crippled leg. I think this handicap is reflected in his scarred eye in the live-action movie. Khan sees himself as the rightful lord of the jungle, but the only animal who agrees with this is the jackal, which is why he has all the latest news on the tiger's whereabouts. He's basically his henchman. Speak of the devil, Father Wolf hears Shere Khan hunting off in the distance. The lame one makes himself even lamer by trying to pounce on a human couple sitting by a campfire and landing with his paws in the hot coals, distracting him and giving them enough time to run away. Shortly after this happens, Father hears a rustling in the grass and discovers a naked human baby just waddling around. He brings the man cub to his den where his own pups are nursing from their mother, and he and his mate Raksha notice the baby isn't afraid of them. At this moment, Shere Khan sticks his big head through the entrance of their den and demands they give him the man cub. But Father's like, "The wolves only take orders from the head of the pack, and that's not you, so we're just gonna keep the baby." This infuriates the entitled Shere Khan, who lets out a terrifying roar that fills their entire cave. But Raksha, who's a total badass, is not gonna let Shere Khan come into her den and threaten her family. Shere Khan may have been burned by the campfire, but Mother Wolf absolutely roasts him, saying, "It is I, Raksha, who answers. The man cub is mine, Lungri, mine to me. He shall not be killed. He shall live to run with the pack and to hunt with the pack. And in the end, look you, hunter of little naked cubs, frog eater, fish killer, he shall hunt thee. Now get hence, back thou goest to thy mother, burned beast of the jungle, lamer than thou ever camest into the world." It's too bad animals can't use aloe vera, because Shere Khan definitely needed it after that. Also, he already had the campfire burned, so that made it worse. He backs away from the cave knowing that he's too big to fit, and leaving his head exposed like so isn't the greatest fighting strategy, but he swears to gobble up that man cub someday. Raksha and Father Wolf are now more motivated than ever to adopt the baby, and Raksha names him Mowgli the Frog because he's soft and hairless like a frog. A few days later, Mowgli's new family meets with their leader Akela and the rest of the wolf pack on Council Rock to get approval for adopting him. Raising a man in the wild was dangerous because he could eventually join the humans as an adult and come back into the jungle using his knowledge to hunt the wildlife. So by law of the jungle, approval for his adoption was necessary, and he needed 2 pack members who weren't his parents to vouch for him. This is where Baloo and Bagheera come in. If you're anything like me, you're probably wondering what a bear and panther are doing at a wolf pack meeting, and there's an interesting explanation. Baloo is responsible for teaching young wolves the laws of the jungle, something all animals have to abide by. I thought this fit perfectly considering his role in the movie in teaching Mowgli the bare necessities. Bagheera was more or less just hanging out at the meeting, but nobody seemed to mind because, as the novel puts it, everybody knew Bagheera and nobody cared to cross his path, for he was as cunning as Tabaqui, as bold as the wild buffalo, and as reckless as the wounded elephant. But he had a voice as soft as wild honey dripping from a tree and a skin softer than down. He basically bought himself a vote by trading them a freshly killed bull, which he did because he knew the alternative was the baby going into Shere Khan's stomach. So at this point, the novel skips forward 10 years and leaves us to imagine the lessons that Mowgli was taught by Baloo and Bagheera. Spoiler alert though, the chapter that follows this is actually a flashback to his learning days, so keep that in mind. Now obviously humans have longer lifespans than wolves, so by the time Mowgli was 10 years old, the wolf pack leader who approved him was starting to climb up there in age. And during those 10 years, Shere Khan continued lurking around the territory, corrupting the minds of the young wolves into thinking they don't need a leader anymore. Bagheera was a wise creature, so he warned Mowgli that at the next council meeting, the lame one might try and start a mutiny. So the panther instructs the man cub to steal a bucket of red flour, aka fire, because it's the only thing that Shere Khan is afraid of. Mowgli gets the fire no problem and spends all night tending to it in a cave, feeding it branches and dry leaves to keep it alive. When Mowgli goes to the council meeting the next day, he sees that Akela is sitting to the side of the leadership position, meaning that it's up for grabs. When Mowgli was out getting the fire, Akela was on a hunting trip and got kicked by a bull he was trying to take down, and according according to jungle law, that means he has to step down from being leader. Shere Khan, who's also attending the meeting, starts to speak, but Mowgli pulls a Mean Girls and is like,
"She doesn't even go here!"
which allows Akela enough time to speak up and call the honor of the pack into question. He says he knows the other wolves have been colluding with Shere Khan, adopting his hunting methods and preying on the weak, even human children who wander too far away from the village. Arguments ensue, the entire pack grows restless, and Mowgli, who knows this can only end in his exile, decides he's had enough. He throws the bucket of fire in front of him, burning both Shere Khan and his cronies alike. And then Bagheera sends him off to the man village to meet his fellow humans for the first time. Chapter 2. Kaa's hunting. Remember how I said Chapter 2 was going to be a flashback to Mowgli's learning days? Well, here we are. It's flashback time. While Mowgli is walking to the man village, he starts to reminisce about one of his lessons with Baloo and Bagheera. And we're taken a few years back to him and Baloo going over the different animals' master words, which is a phrase in each of their respective languages that roughly translates to, "I'm a friend and I need your help." If you use the master word, it's very hard for animals to turn you down. And since Mowgli is the only human in the entire jungle, and most animals see him as a potential threat, he has to have a way to communicate that he's not. Unlike the movie, Mowgli doesn't really appreciate his lessons, but also unlike the movie, every time he gets something wrong, he gets a little smack from Baloo, so I can't really blame the kid for being agitated. After his frustration reaches a boiling point, Mowgli launches into a tirade about how he's going to start a tribe of his own with the monkey people and throw dirt and sticks and probably at Baloo. Hearing that Mowgli's been talking with the monkeys infuriates Bagheera and Baloo. They're seen as miscreants, lawless people with no respect for the jungle. Listen to the warning Baloo gives Mowgli in his description of monkey society. "Listen, man cub," said the bear, and his voice rumbled like thunder on a hot night. "I have taught thee all the law of the jungle for all the peoples of the jungle, except the monkey folk who live in the trees. They have no law. They are outcasts. They have no speech of their own, but use the stolen words which they overhear when they listen and peep and wait above in the branches. Their way is not our way. They are without leaders. They have no remembrance. They boast and chatter and pretend they are a great people about to do great affairs in the jungle, but the falling of a nut turns their minds to laughter and all is forgotten. We of the jungle have no dealings with them. We do not drink where the monkeys drink. We do not go where the monkeys go. We do not hunt where they hunt. We do not die where they die. Hast thou ever heard me speak of the Bandar log till today? The jungle people put them out of their mouths and out of their minds. They are very many evil, dirty, shameless, and they desire, if they have any fixed desire, to be noticed by the jungle people. But we do not notice them, even when they throw nuts and filth on our heads." Like I said, Kipling has a way with words. That excerpt even discouraged me from running away and joining the monkeys. I thought they were more organized. The movies made it look like they had a leader, but apparently that's not true at all. I'm happy to report that speech had the same effect on Mowgli. He was finally able to see that the Bandar log are the scum of the jungle. Only it didn't matter much in the end, because after he and his two mentors laid down for their afternoon nap, the monkeys descended from the trees and snatched him up, similar to what we saw in the film. Mowgli tries not to panic, and when he sees a nearby kite, he uses the bird's master word to tell him who he is, that he's being kidnapped, and to tell Baloo and Bagheera where they take him. Meanwhile, Baloo and Bagheera are freaking out that Mowgli's disappeared because they know the monkeys are responsible, so they seek out the one creature they know their kind is afraid of to ask for help. That creature is Kaa the Python, who, unlike the movie, isn't trying to hypnotize and kill everyone around him. You might even say he's a good guy in this story. The reason the monkeys are so afraid of Kaa is because he can climb the trees as fast as they can, and he often comes to their territory at night to snatch away their strongest members. Not to mention he's a 30-foot python with a quite literal hug of death, so why wouldn't you be afraid of him? One of the funniest parts about this chapter is how Bagheera convinces Kaa to help them out. He basically tells him that the monkeys were talking shit about him, calling him a footless yellow earthworm and saying he won't face anything larger than a child. Now remember, it's Bagheera who's making up these insults on the spot and saying them to his face, not the monkeys, which I find pretty hilarious. At this point, the kite from earlier flies down to them and reports that Mowgli's been taken to the city ruins deep in the jungle, and our heroes head off in that direction. While he's stuck there, Mowgli starts to realize everything Baloo said about the monkeys was true. They basically just wanted him as a novelty plaything, and also to show them how to tie sticks and canes together to protect themselves from the cold. They won't even let him go outside the city walls to hunt, but whenever he asks them for for food, their memories are so bad, they forget what they're doing by the time they reach the fruit or nuts. He's also forced to listen to all these clearly made up stories about how great their society is, similar to how he's subjected to that song in the film, but who's gonna complain about a live performance from Louis Prima? Also similar to the movie, the following rescue scene has all kinds of chaotic action that was a headache to summarize, so pay attention while I break this down. Lucky for Mowgli, at this point, Baloo, Bagheera, and Kaa are all infiltrating the city ruins from different sides. But as soon as the monkeys see Bagheera creeping in, they start to spaz out and they drop Mowgli into an abandoned summer home so he can't be taken. Bagheera is leading the monkeys all around the city ruins, swiping at any that get close, while Baloo barrels into the arena and starts tossing the monkeys around like they're nothing. Our heroes may be strong, but they're outnumbered 50-1, so they're starting to get overwhelmed until Kaa finally pulls himself over the city walls and makes his presence known. Kipling explains how pythons fight with their bodies and compares Kaa to a battering ram or sledgehammer. He says that a 4 to 5 foot python striking a man's chest could easily knock him over, so imagine a 30-foot python swinging into a crowd of 100 monkeys. I like to picture it as that crazy fight scene in The Matrix. That's about as similar a visual as you'll get, I think. The snake's presence alone is enough to terrify most of the monkeys into running away. Remember, Kaa was everything that the monkeys feared in the jungle, for none of them knew the limits of his power, none of them could look him in the face, and none had ever come out of his hug alive. Still, only a few moments pass before another wave of reinforcement monkeys comes into the city, but Kaa lets out a hiss that hypnotizes them into submission and gives him enough time to demolish the building that Mowgli is trapped in. Funnily enough, when Kaa finally sees him, he thinks he looks delicious, similar to the movie, but he realizes that now isn't the time to try to eat the kid. Mowgli then reunites with Baloo and Bagheera, while Kaa decides it's time for a snack and uses the dance of hunger to lead the hypnotized monkeys into the brush away from the city. Mowgli is left alone with his two mentors, and after they make sure he's okay, Bagheera disciplines him by giving him half a dozen love taps. Now those love taps, from a panther's point of view, were super light, hardly enough to wake up a sleeping cub, but from Mowgli's perspective, it equated to a severe beating that any child would wish to avoid. After the punishment was over, the man cub got on Bagheera's back and was taken back to the wolf den. Chapter 3. Taiga Taiga. And now we enter the final chapter of Mowgli's story, which is titled Tiger Tiger, so you can probably guess what that's about. So Mowgli leaves the jungle society and heads down to the man village, where initially the residents are afraid of him. That is until one of them points out that Mowgli has the same eyes as that baby that was taken by the tiger all those years ago. That infant's mother, named Mesua, steps forward to inspect Mowgli and agrees to adopt him and teach him the ways of man. Now the book never confirms that Mowgli is this woman's long-lost kid. It actually discourages the idea because when Mesua calls Mowgli by her son's name, Nathu, he has no response, but I think the subject is still up for debate. That night, Mesua gives Mowgli some bread and milk and starts teaching him the basics of human language. He's still young with a brain like a sponge, so by the end of their lesson, Mowgli knows just enough to get by and continues to learn from listening to the villagers. When it's time for bed, the man cub has a hard time sleeping indoors because the roof reminds him of a panther trap. So his parents let him sleep outside in the grass, and it's at this point that he's sneakily approached by one of his wolf siblings. Gray Brother tells Mowgli that Shere Khan's left the territory because of his burns, but plans on returning to kill him, to which Mowgli responds, "Let him come." Gray Brother agrees to keep Mowgli updated on Shere Khan's location and other jungle news, and then they part ways. For the next 3 months, Mowgli adjusted to life in the village, and it was not an easy adjustment. He had to get used to wearing clothes, learn how money worked, and continue to expand his vocabulary. He was often made fun of by other kids in the village, and even considered killing them on multiple occasions just to teach them a lesson. But jungle law says it's unsportsmanlike to kill young, naked cubs, so he restrained himself. Even so, Mowgli was having a hard time staying out of trouble, so he was given a job herding buffalo, similar to Hercules if you remember. He didn't mind at all because he would rather spend time with animals than humans anyway. In this way, he could easily meet with Gray Brother at the edge of the field with no one noticing. Because of his status as a village servant, every night Mowgli had meetings with the other village servants, like the watchman, barber, and hunter, where they'd gossip and tell stories. One of these stories comes from Buldeo the hunter and involves a certain ghost tiger that's taken men from right outside the village gates and leaves uneven footprints. Obviously, this is Shere Khan, who isn't a ghost, and Mowgli gets sick of listening to the hunter's made-up stories, so he stands up and says, "Listen, this guy hasn't said a word of truth about the jungle all night. Here's the real details." In response, the hunter gets pissed and challenges Mowgli to bring back the ghost tiger's hide if he's so real. Also, as punishment for his outburst, the man cub has to spend even more more time in the fields with the buffalo, but again, he doesn't care at all. About a month later, Mowgli learns from Gray Brother that Shere Khan's returned to the territory and plans on killing him the next time he leaves the village alone. But right now, he's had a fresh meal and he's napping in the ravine, which means he's the slowest and most vulnerable that he can get. All this useful information came from Tabaqui right before Gray Brother snapped his spine. Mowgli realizes that now is his best chance to kill the monster that's threatened him his entire life. So he gets on top of the largest bull's back, hijacks the herd of buffalo, and leads them into the jungle towards the ravine. With the help of his old leader Akela and Gray Brother, they divide the herd into two and lead the groups into each side of the ravine. The sound of the stampede wakes up Shere Khan, but he only has enough time to realize what's about to happen to him just before it happens to him. He looks back and forth with each herd barreling towards him, one with the females and their calves and one with the bulls. Khan decides he'd rather face the bulls than the females who are also protecting their calves, which means the last thing he saw was 10-year-old Mowgli riding the biggest bull leading the stampede that would trample him to death. Pretty lame way to go if I do say so myself. Then again, Shere Khan was the lame one. Naturally, Mowgli had to harvest the hide of his greatest enemy, but out of nowhere, that big dumb hunter from the jungle, Buldeo, comes out of nowhere and is like, "Good job, jungle brat. Now step aside while I take that tiger hide for myself and collect the bounty." Mowgli responds, "Okay, that's not gonna happen. Akela, deal with this fool." And Akela jumps from the brush onto Buldeo and pins him under his paws. Obviously, Buldeo is surprised and terrified and decides that Mowgli must have magic powers if he can control such a powerful beast with his words. Mowgli lets the hunter go eventually, but this only results in the entire village turning against him. Buldeo warns the residents that Mowgli has some kind of dark magic in him, that he's a jungle demon and mustn't be allowed back. Shortly after, Mowgli returns to the village with the hide on his back and the cattle behind him. The residents start to shout and throw rocks, and even Buldeo takes a shot at Mowgli with his rifle, only he misses and hits one of the cattle. Hilariously, Buldeo can't even admit that he missed the shot. He blames it on Mowgli using his magic to move bullets in air. Mowgli has no desire to be where he isn't wanted, so he shrugs off the villagers' insults and rocks, and after his adopted mother thanks him for avenging her son's death, he heads back to Mother Wolf's den. She says she is so proud of him for fulfilling the promise she made to Shere Khan all those years ago, and after he goes to Council Rock with Gray Brother and Akela, who calls the wolf pack to assembly. They show up looking like the residents of Catch Fools, patchy hair, some of them are really skinny or have injuries. They see that Shere Khan is dead, offer Mowgli a spot in the pack, and want Akela to rule once again. But Bagheera says it's against the laws of the jungle. The wolves wanted to be a free people, and now they're a free people. You reap what you sow. Mowgli turns down the offer too. He announces that he's been kicked out of both the wolf pack and the man pack, and that he'll choose to hunt alone from now on, or with his 4 wolf brothers. The final line of the story reads, "So Mowgli went away and hunted with the 4 cubs in the jungle from that day on. But he was not always alone, because years afterward he became a man and married. But that is a story for grown-ups." In that, Solo fam, is the Jungle Book, or at least the first 3 chapters of it. What'd you think? Was it as messed up as you were hoping? I've gotta say, if you're the least bit interested and have some time to kill, I highly encourage you to read the story yourself. It's not very long, it's beautifully written, and I put a free link to it in the sources section, so you have no reason not to. If you enjoyed this video and what I do here on the channel, make sure to smash that like button with all your heart so you can help us reach our goal of 5,000 likes, and subscribe while ringing that bell so you never miss another episode. As always, the best way to stay updated on the Messed Up Origins series and what projects I'm working on next is to follow me on social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Links to all those in the description down below. I'll be seeing you guys soon with even more messed up and magical content. Until then, my name is John Solo, and remember, John shot first.